what did we do before computers? Did we use stones, bones, animals? It was most likely fingers and toes, but shortly after that, well, maybe not too shortly, one man changed it all. And that man would make a machine that would lead to the things we do today. Before Charles Babbage was to make this wonderful machine, there were men who were put to work to do the math. These men were named calculators. These men would hate their jobs, and their tables were usually a sloppy mess of mistakes. Then one day, Babbage got a table that a calculator had made for the British Astronomical Society and found tons of errors. He proposed that a machine should be made to take the jobs of the calculators and be much faster and more efficient. This machine was to be called the difference engine. Now, Babbage did have enemies. He had tried to ban the organ grinders because they distracted him and they hated him for that. They tried everything possible to distract him and fill him with distress. When the organ grinders weren't trying to antagonize him, Babbage worked as hard as he could on making this machine. Building the machine was harder than Babbage thought. The machine makers at the time did not have the tools to make the pieces that were of the measurements that Babbage needed. Babbage then built new tools that changed British engineering forever. After this, Babbage got back to work on the difference engine. When part of it was finally done, it could make up to 6-digit math problems. The government had decided to pull out of helping Babbage shortly after he ran out of the grant that the government had given him. Babbage then proposed that a new machine be made. This one was to be called the analytical engine. It added the components of a modern-day computer like a CPU and memory storage area. Ada Lovelace had heard of this machine and wrote a newsletter about it, the design and creation. Ada was technically the first programmer. This machine was never completed. When Babbage became ill, the organ grinders got their revenge. They made their music sound extra loud and antagonized him until he died. The census was unable to keep up with the rate that America was growing. A contest was held to see who could make the best and easiest solution. James Hollerith won the contest and built a machine that saved the census. This machine was called the tabulating machine. This machine was successful in everything except the train business. Much later, Hollerith was diagnosed with a bad heart and sold the plans for the tabulating machine for over $1 million. This machine had later given rise to a multimillionaire company named IBM. IBM was soon to give rise to many more types of computers and events. During World War II, a man named John proposed a machine that should make gun tables better than ever. The current gun tables were trial and error tables, so they had to be fixed. The army reluctantly helped him by giving him $500,000. This machine was going to be called ENIAC. ENIAC used 18,000 vacuum tubes that would burn out and cripple the machine constantly. John decided to test the tubes at critical levels and ran them at low power. That meant the machine could work to 10 to 30 minutes. Since ENIAC worked so fast, you could get a lot done in half an hour. ENIAC was finished after the Japanese surrendered, though. Cheers rang out as the American citizens heard that the Japanese had surrendered and the war was over. A little bit before the end of World War II, a Polish refugee came to the British embassy saying he could sell the British army the key to solving the Enigma code. Hitler had encrypted his radio messages so well that the Allies could not decode it. This Polish boy was offering to sell it to them. The boy was given a counterfeit passport and smuggled through the UK. Using this information, the British made a machine named Colossus. Colossus helped decode certain messages and severely helped in the war. Around 1969, the Russians and the USA were locked in a very special race, the space race. The Russians were ahead by sending a dog into space with a space capsule. The dog was the first animal in space. We then sent a monkey and gathered even more information about when we need to send a person into space. On July 16, 1969, in Cape Canaveral, Florida, we were getting ready to launch the Apollo 11. The computer was crucial to this mission. If human calculators still existed, the crew would die instantly. The computer helped then win a race, the space race. Two boys named Bill Gates and Steve Jobs were sitting in their garage making computers. These teenage prodigies had decided to take up the computer business. These computers were the first Apple computers. Their business boomed and they decided to make the Macintosh 1. Steve Jobs and Bill Gates soon parted ways, and Bill soon became one of the most successful computer company owners in the business. Steve went on to make a fair amount of money and made many more Apple computers. Bill went on to make more versions of Microsoft and became more successful than ever. In 2007, the iPhone was created. This was a big leap for Apple because it was one of the first touchscreen phones of its time. The Apple business moves up on the marketing board until Bill came back with much better Microsoft than ever, like the Xbox, Xbox 360, Windows 7, and more. Shortly after Steve's death in 2011, a new gadget called the Kindle, an electronic reading device that sparked another sensation, the Nook. The Nook was basically another Kindle, just a little different in size, shape, and quality. In conclusion, the computer is one of the most helpful and successful things in creation, giving rise to some of the most famous people and companies in history. Soon there will be things like augmented reality, human-like AI, computers inside of us, and more. To prove the effect of computers, here are some interviews I made with some friends of mine. How do computers affect your life today?
I get to play Minecraft. Entertainment. Okay. Computers are really... I like computers because they've actually helped me do my NHD project. And I am a child of this generation, so I like using computers. Instead of reading a book about it, I just go to Google, and it's affected my life a lot. And I like to go to YouTube and watch funny videos, and
So, computers, when I was growing up, really were not something that you could have in your own home. It was something that existed far away at universities, and every once in a while, as I got to be a teenager, you might see home computers in the 80s. But it's remarkable to me now that I can pull a fully functioning computer out of my pocket and look up anything in the world at any time.
Life without the computer would be unhelpful and chaotic. We all owe Charles Babbage a great amount for coming up with the idea of the computer.